Welcome back to NewsX. I'm Thomas Porteous and you're watching Focal Length, where we get you a briefing on topics from across the world. In this conversation, we will discuss some of the most pressing issues in global politics, from the tension over the H1B visa politics between Elon Musk and MAGA hardliners. Additionally, we will also uncover Donald Trump's approach to tariffs with countries like Canada and China. Trump has also made promising remarks on the Russia-Ukraine war. Can his mediation efforts lead to peace? We will further understand the implications of the Azerbaijan plane crash and the Israel-Hamas war. What impact will Trump have on these wars? Let's find out. Joining us is Walter K. Anderson. He currently holds the position of Senior Adjunct Professor of South Asia Studies at Johns Hopkins University. It's Paul H. Nietzsche School of Advanced International Studies. In addition, he is a faculty member at Tongji University in Shanghai, China. Before his academic career, Dr. Anderson taught comparative politics at the College of Worcester and worked as a political analyst at the United States Department, specializing in South Asia, particularly India and the Indian Ocean region. He also served as an adjunct professor at the American University in Washington, D.C. Thank you, Walter Anderson, for joining us. My first question to you is, what do you think about the H1B visa row between Elon Musk and MAGA hardliners?
Well, as you may know, the president has, the to-be president, Trump, has spoken out in favor of the H1B visa. And he did so because he's rather close to the world of high technology in the U.S. And in the world of high technology, they rely heavily on foreign-trained technology people who come on H1B visas. My guess is, even though there are many people who oppose it on grounds that this is part of the move against large-scale immigration, which actually was a leading issue in the campaign, this is somewhat different in that the numbers are not huge, but they're highly qualified.
What do you think of Trump's tariff plan on Canada, China, and other countries?
Well, including India. I mean, he has also said that countries that charge exorbitant tariff rates on the U.S., has the obligation to also charge high tariffs on their goods coming in. But he often uses these statements as a bargaining chip to indicate what he wants done. So it doesn't mean he's going to do it. It means he's concerned by that. And so, foreign heads of states and people involved in trade are looking at that issue, which is what exactly he had in mind. Doesn't mean he's going to do it, but he may. And it's an indication that he is concerned about the issue of high tariffs on American goods. And there's a possibility that he will charge higher tariffs on corresponding goods from overseas.
Do you think Trump will be successful in negotiating peace between Russia and Ukraine?
A difficult issue. He thinks he can. He gets along well with the head of the Russian state, Putin. And I think he thinks that there is sufficient ground for Putin, the head of the Russian state, to consider some kind of resolution of the issue, because many Russian soldiers have died in this. In fact, you've probably heard that he's even felt it necessary to invite North Korean soldiers to come into Russia to fight, because and the reason for that is, I suspect it's a shortage. You've had such a large number of Russians killed or wounded in that, and the Ukrainians, after all, are fighting for their homeland, so they're putting up a stiff fight, to protect themselves. So I think Trump has said he wants it. He wants to do so, and my guess is after January 20th, when he is sworn in as president of the United States, he will almost certainly contact Putin, and Zelensky, who he's met several times, to work out some kind of deal that is mutually acceptable. It's going to be difficult, but I think he wants it, and I think he thinks that the situation on the ground makes it a possibility.
What do you have to say about the Azerbaijan plane crash? Should Ukraine, NATO and Russia together take responsibility? Should no-fly zones have been demarcated in a state of war?
Well, this is not the first time a commercial airliner has been shot down in that area. As you know, this has happened on a couple of occasions. Who is responsible? It's very difficult to find out. I mean, much of the press has said the Russians are responsible for bringing it down because it flew into an area that was a combat area. And maybe something, as your suggestion is a very good one, that maybe they should have tougher rules about no-fly zones. So in a commercial, when you fly from India, for example, to Europe, that it doesn't fly over Ukraine or over the area. In fact, some other places in the Middle East where you have equally dangerous places. You may want to talk about that, and that's the Israeli situation as well. So I think that they need to work out something that the international flights avoid that area. Now, in this case, I'm not sure if the Azerbaijani flight veered off course, because I would think that most international airlines have been warned to stay away from war zones. That's just what happens in that situation. And it's apparent they did not. And I feel that there may have been a mistake made. I don't know. But this is something that, I think this will be an issue they'll have to sort of discuss. And, the idea that you had about, stricter enforcement of no-fly zones will probably have to be, in place as long as the fighting goes on.
What are the chances of a hostage release deal being struck between Hamas and Israel?
Well, the Israelis and the head of the Israeli state, Benjamin Netanyahu, has said that he wants the release of the hostages as a condition for a resolution of the issue. And the other side, I think, sees the hostages as something that they can use to their benefit. And so far, they have released some hostages in an earlier ceasefire. To what extent that's going to happen now, I don't think has been worked out yet. Word would have leaked had they worked out something out. And so that's still an issue, I think, that has to be resolved.
Israel has been condemned for taking innocent lives in Gaza. Can Israel be restrained, or will it continue till the deal is struck? Can world leaders do nothing about it?
One has to remember that Israel was the party that was attacked in this. And they had these hostages that were taken, maybe triple the number that they now have. And some have been released, some have died. This was, from everything I know about my former colleagues at the US State Department, this issue in Israel was, a dramatic issue that required some kind of firm response. The question is, what will happen to Gaza after the fighting is over? Fighting isn't over yet. There are still elements of Hamas still in Gaza area. But it has much weakened. And then Iran, who is a supplier of these fighters, has also been weakened as well. So as far as I know, no deal has yet been struck. I mean, occasionally you'll hear our Secretary of State, Blinken, and others say we're close to a deal, and then somehow it doesn't happen. And it's very difficult. And my guess is this is going to be an issue that the president is going to sort of focus on, is how to resolve this issue, how to bring it to some kind of close. And I think that will involve, at the minimum, the release of the hostages in one way or the other. The other question then is who governs this area once the fighting ends. There are some Israelis and some members of the cabinet in Israel who demand that the Israelis take control of the Gaza Strip, as they had control at one point, up until about maybe, 20 years ago. And that hasn't been worked out yet, but the Israelis are going to insist on something that protects their security, that you don't have another issue like this. In some ways, they're in a better position to do that. Iran has been weakened. Hezbollah in the far north, operating in the southern Lebanon, has been weakened. Hamas has been weakened. In some ways, they're in a good situation, though the fighting hasn't ended. And I think this is something that our president, is going to sort of put a lot of focus on.
Do you think the ouster of Assad and installing of terrorist organization HTS in Syria could lead to a revival of ISIS in the region?
Well, ISIS is there. It doesn't have to be revived. It's already there. And the present head of the new government has said that he is not favorably inclined toward ISIS. And in fact, anything that creates instability, because what he's trying to do is to bring the various parts together so that to improve the economy. And there's a wonderful article in today's Mint, published here in Delhi, that goes into that issue that he's facing. And as he tries to, first of all, bring some kind of peace within the various groups, because you had a number of groups that were fighting who have their own agendas, so bring them together. And that's the first. I think the Israelis would think that was an important step to do, because what they want is a situation where their border to the west, Syria, is not threatened, it doesn't threaten Israel. And he, at least so far, has taken a sort of moderate position. And I think this is another issue our president is going to be focusing on. In fact, he's probably focusing on it already.
Thank you, Walter Anderson, for speaking to us on Focal Length. With that, it's a wrap on this episode. For more international news updates, stay tuned on NewsX.